Hello and welcome to this first part of a two-parter series where I'll be comparing 4-track cassette recorders and modern digital recording. So in this first part I will be exploring some of the reasons why someone would reach for a device like this instead of a digital audio workstation within the computer. And then in the second part I will be showing you how you can create the recording workflow of a 4-track cassette recorder in your computer and why you would do that. And without further ado, here's part 1. Enjoy. So a bit of a context for you. This is a 4-track cassette recorder. This is a Tascam Porta Studio, and this records 4 tracks of audio onto a cassette. I got this one on eBay for quite cheap due to the fact it had quite a few functionality issues, but I wasn't discouraged and I thought it might make for quite a fun project to try and fix it. I did give it a really good go. I managed to fix a few of the main problems that I was having, such as the cassette deck was actually stuck in there initially. The motors and doohickeys inside were trapping this thing inside it. It came with a cassette deck from the previous owner, and I haven't been able to get the tape machine up and running to find out what's on here, but I'd be very, very keen. Maybe one day I might be able to listen to them. It didn't come with a power supply either, but I was quite fortunate enough to have a few power supplies lying around, and I found one which was actually adequate. But the big question here is, why did I buy this outdated, discontinued technology for recording? When I have a MacBook Pro like this running Logic, why would I use anything else? Why would I deprive myself of the countless options of tracks, the hundreds upon hundreds of audio tracks I could run simultaneously in the computer, and instead opt for a simple 4-track device? Well, I've thought of 3 main reasons why somebody might opt for a device like this instead of options we have in today's modern digital recording. There's so much offered up in today's digital audio workstations. There's so many plugins, there's so many instruments, software instruments that you can just pull up, and each one has countless ways you can use it, countless ways of manipulating and morphing, just an infinite palette of choice, an infinite palette of places to start a song. And I'm certain that there'll be some of you out there which have opened up a session to be greeted with blank and not having the foggiest idea of where to start. And then maybe when you've actually recorded your entire project full of tons of recordings and you want to try mixing it all together, and then there's so many places to begin with that too. You know, you've got all the EQs and the compressors, a huge palette of tone shaping options to make everything meticulously the way you want it. So coming back to a device like this, you have 4 audio tracks. Each track has a volume and panning. Some of these devices also come with a small EQ section, possibly, to add a bit of high end, a bit of low end onto a track maybe, but often not a whole lot more than that. It can definitely uncloud your judgment just laying down the musical ideas instead of trying to think about, does the vocal have enough high end? Have I got enough reverb? Have I got enough reverb? Is it too compressed? Is the balance just right? Sometimes I'm guilty of this myself. I can definitely be carried away too much by post-processing ideas and tweaking compression and EQ in minute ways, and to record in this way is bare bones. You don't have so much to work with and you just get your ideas down. It's the way they used to do it back in the day. It's all about the music, man. Another reason why someone might go down a hardware route is that it's just the tactile hardware response of slidey things and turny things and all that goodness. I'm a big time digital guy. The first thing I ever used to record music was GarageBand, which is fantastic, which has a massive amount of capabilities by today's standard, a lot more than this has. But sometimes these days, workflow can lack a little bit of hands-on equipment with hardware modules and other similar devices which are outside of the screen and the computer and the keyboard and mouse. You know, these slip and slides and the twisty turnies and the pushy buttonies. It often provides a much more involved experience in the music making process, and can even bring a live performance aspect to a possibly static, very static arrangement. Yeah, and there's, you know, the play, rewind, fast forward. If you press the enter bar in whatever DAW you're using, it's usually mapped to revert right back to the beginning of the DAW. Immediately, like that. The thing with tape machines is that it takes a bit of time for the tape to get right back to the start of what you're recording. Things like that can offer the musicians and the engineers like a little short break while it rewinds. Everything can be done so fast in today's world, but having, you know, just a little break while the tape rewinds itself. There's also something really satisfying about the way the buttons on this machine click. Maybe it's just me. So in summary, it can definitely be a rewarding experience to be hands-on with physical pieces of gear like this, instead of doing everything with your mouse and, you know, a few hotkeys on your keyboard. My final point is about analog saturation and compression, but mainly tape. So recording on a tape like this, or a big reel-to-reel machine, these sorts of mediums impart something called harmonic distortion. And it's one aspect that people find quite desirable about recording on mediums like this. Without getting too technical, it's essentially additional harmonics other than the harmonics of the source that you are recording. It creates additional information which can often really be quite desirable and add a bit more density. As well as that, there's also a compression that happens where the recorded information has its transients softened a little bit. Instead of being super transient and clicky and percussive, the tape rounds off elements like that to make them a bit more rounded and compressed. I will encourage you to check out some of the extra reading that I will share with you in the description if you want to learn more about that. So that's the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. If there's any summarized takeaway from this video, it's probably going to be this. With the massive amount of capabilities we have to record everything today, sometimes the most stripped back ideas for recording can be the most productive way forward in some circumstances. And in part 2, which will be linked in the description below or somewhere on screen right now, I'm going to show you a method I've created in emulating a 4-track cassette recording workflow. But in the meantime, take a short break between this video and part 2, grab yourself a hot or cold beverage, and I'll see you over on the flip side.